Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're going to do a little bit of algebra and a little bit of geometry combined. For starters, some basic stuff here. Where we're going to be measuring segments. Sort of really silly to even put this in writing because the distance between 2 points A and B will be written as the length of AB, which you would have probably figured that out. Okay, now you can also denote the length of AB with just the letters A and B without a segment symbol above it. So notice, oops, let me go back here. Notice the notation here. If I put the segment symbol, I'm talking about the length of segment AB because of that line above it, or I can just say AB. Okay, congruent. Congruent is a fancy word that means equal. I mean, you kind of think of it as equal. There's a slight technical difference, but you wouldn't misunderstand regardless. Let me show you what I mean. If two segments are equal, then you write that like this. Their measures are equal. If they have equal measure, then we say the segments are congruent, and you use this symbol for congruence. It's an equal sign. I'm going to write it again a little bigger. Looks like this. It's an equal sign with a squiggle above it. There's a technical difference. When you use congruence, you're supposed to have the segments are congruent. If you use equal, their measures are equal. I'm not really going to make a big deal of it. Just make sure you know congruent means that they're equal measures, okay? Just know that symbol. All right, now if we're adding two segments, then if I add AB plus BC, you get AC. I don't even know why I'm bothering, because that's simple. But that's what this says. When you add AB plus BC, you get AC. Okay, AB plus, oops, sorry, technical difficulties. AB plus BC equals AC. Kind of get rid of the middle guy. Don't worry about it. All of this is kind of silly. It's all very common sense in these upcoming examples. Okay, so main idea here. If I didn't give you this picture, then you would want to make sure you draw it, okay? Always draw geometry. And if you draw a picture of it, then trust me, it's easy. Okay, so here we go. If PQ is 9, well, then I'm going to put a 9 right here. And QR is 28, 28. And notice that they don't have the segment symbol above the PQ. They didn't do this. And that's because we're talking about the measure of PQ, okay? Find PR. Well, that's the whole thing. Add them up. 28 plus 9 is 37. No big deal. Silliness. Okay? Now let me erase that for the next one. Or I'll just use a different color. If QR is 17, okay, this guy's 17. I can't take it. Got to get rid of the old stuff. One moment, please. Okay. If QR is 17, done, and PR is 21, that's the whole thing, is 21, then find PQ. That would be this guy right here. I don't really need algebra to figure that out. What number plus 17 is 21? I can write algebra if I want to, but I think we can do this in our head. 21 minus 17, so PQ would be 4. You really do not need to show work for common sense type problems like that. Okay? All right. Now we have something where you might need to show a little bit of work because we're using algebra. Okay? So, number 3. If EG, which is the whole thing, is 71, then find X. Well, F might look like it's in the middle of these two, but you don't know that for sure. They didn't say anything about it. All we know is that together this whole thing is 71. So you're going to write an equation that says that. This piece plus this piece has to equal the total. So 8x minus 17 plus the 5x minus 3. Together those guys have to add up to 71. Now you can write your equation like that, or you could have just combined like terms up here in your head, because that's the next step we're going to do anyway. Add the 8x and the 5x, which is 13x, Add the negative 17 and the negative 3, which is a negative 20, and bring down the 71. Solve that equation. Add 21 to both sides, add 20 to both sides, which you don't have to write if you don't want to. And you get 13x equals 91. Divide by 13 on both sides. I'm guessing that is 7, but I'll check it in my calculator. 91 divided by 13 is 7. Okay, so now here's something that's different about geometry versus algebra. In algebra, when you get x equals answer, you're typically done. In geometry, you have to read the question very carefully and see what they asked. Here they asked for the value of x, so yes, this is the answer. But sometimes they'll ask you to find the value of the segment. And even if they don't ask you to, it might be wise to take this answer and plug it in on the figure so that you can make sure it checks. So real quick, with a calculator or in your head, just do 8 times 7, your answer, which is 56, minus 17. And what that gives you is the length of segment EF, which is 39. Okay, now that's not necessarily checking it yet, but it will. Let's plug in the x of 7 into the other segment. 5 times 7 is 35, minus 3, you'd get 32. And how does this check? Well, these two pieces are supposed to add up to 71. 39 plus 32 does add up to 71, so I can be sure that it checks. Again, the answer to the question was just x equals 7, but plugging it in to check is pretty smart, because then you know whether or not you did it right. All right, number 4. Let me erase all of this. Okay, number 4. TV, the whole thing, is 14x minus 8. So the two pieces, this guy, 9x plus 2, plus this guy, uv, has to equal the total. That's it. Easy peasy. Okay? The two pieces equal the total. That's all. Add like terms. So I have 9x plus 7 equals 14x minus 8. Now the x's are on opposite sides of the equal sign, so you have to do the opposite to get them together. I'm going to subtract 9x on both sides. You can also add 8 at the same time if you wanted to. So I get 5x minus 8. Add 8 to both sides, and you really don't have to show that work. Okay, but if you want to, it's fine. And I get 5x equals 15. Divide by 5 on both sides, and x will be 3. Now be careful, that may or may not be the final answer. Reread the question. This time it says to find TU. Well, TU is this guy. So plug in the 3 for x right here. We'd get 9 times 3 plus 2. And you don't have to show that work. You can do it in your head. So that's 27 plus 2, or 29. Okay, and that is the answer to the question. TU is 29 is the answer to the question, not x equals 3. Now, you might want to plug it in here also so that you can double check that the two pieces do add up to the whole. Okay, this is really just more of the same, so I don't even think I'm going to do all of these. They really do look very, very, very similar. If you want to pause and try number 5, then I'll work it out for you, and I'm going to probably skip number 6 because it's just more of the same. But go ahead, pause number 5, or pause and do number 5, and I'll see you in a second. Okay, JL is the whole thing, and JL is 5x plus 2. So JK, just kidding, plus KL, 3x minus 1, has to equal the total, 5x plus 2. Combine like terms on the left. The 27 and negative 1 is 26. Subtract the 3x on both sides. At the same time, I can subtract 2, or you could do it in 2 separate steps if you'd rather. And I get 24 is equal to 2x. Divide by 2, and x is 12. Okay. Take that answer and plug it into the question. This time the question is JL, which is the whole thing. So I'm going to plug it in right here for x. So it's 5 times 12 plus 2. Okay, so that's 60 plus 2, or 62 is my answer for JL. Okay, so technically we should say that the measure of JL is 62. Hope you got that one right. I am going to skip number 6 because it's getting a little redundant. Let me see what else I have. Okay, I'm skipping number 6, and I'm going to skip number 7. Again, it's all kind of the same thing, a little too much of the same thing. It's redundant. I will work out number 7 for you if you want to do it. So here it is. If you want to pause, you can do it on your own and check your answers. But I'm not going to show the process and spend the time on the video this time. I'll just display the answers. So hit pause if you want to. Okay, here is my very sloppy work. But this one, if you just took all of the information that they gave in the problem and put it on the figure, then it's no different than all of the other ones. So they gave me SK, so I wrote that that's 13x minus 5. They give me KY, so I filled that in here. And then they give me the total, SY, so that's the whole thing. So this piece plus this piece has to equal the total. Okay, and then it's combine like terms and solve the equation from there, and then fill it in and check your work. Okay, really nothing different there, same old stuff. All right, moving on. This is just one itty-bitty little thing extra. Midpoint, okay? Midpoint is what it sounds like. It's a point in the frickin' middle. How hard can that be? Point in middle. So I'm going to have some terminology here that you can copy into your notes if you want to. But to be honest with you, it's very, 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 very common sense. Okay? So here we go. The midpoint divides the segment into two congruent segments. So if B, point B, is the midpoint of AC, then that means this piece is congruent to this piece. Now when we mark congruent segments, let me just draw that again. If I said that B is the midpoint of AC, then it means the length of this segment is the same as the length of this segment. To mark that in geometry, we use the same number of slash marks. This is congruent to this because they both have one slash mark. If you use 2 slash marks, this is congruent to this. That's okay also, but you use the equal number of slash marks. Okay? So now, coming back to that, B is a midpoint, means it cuts it smack dab in the middle. So anytime you see that word midpoint, you got to know that that automatically means this piece is definitely equal to this piece because they said so with the word midpoint. Okay? Now the word bisect. If it's not a point, but instead it's a line or a ray, okay, then we call this, if it goes through the midpoint, then we say that it's a bisector. It's a bisector, and the word bisect means it cuts it in half again, cuts it into 2 equal pieces. The difference is a midpoint is a point, a bisector is not a point, it's a line or a ray. Okay? But it does the same thing. So if it's a midpoint, it cuts it into 2 equal pieces. If it's a bisector, it cuts it into 2 equal pieces. Okay? So now this last part right here, in the diagram to the left, what is the midpoint? Well, B is the midpoint of AC. And line blank is a segment bisector. Line L is a segment bisector. Most important thing here, just remember the 2 words, midpoint and bisector. They both mean to cut something perfectly in half. Okay? So for all of these problems, we're going to have midpoints and bisectors. And if they say that it's a midpoint, then you know right away these 2 pieces are equal. And that's how you set up the equation. 7x minus 16 has to equal 4x plus 2, and you solve for that from there. Okay? Midpoints and bisectors, they do kind of act the same way. They cut it into 2 equal parts. Okay, now solve that. Subtract 4x on both sides. Add 16 at the same time if you want to. You can do it in 2 separate steps if you'd rather. Okay, and I get 3x equals 18. Divide by 3, and x is 6. Check the question. That might be the answer. Find the value of x. Yep, I'm done. If they had said to find the value of one of the pieces, I would plug that back in. Again, the smart thing to do is to plug in the value of x here and here anyway, just to show that they actually are equal. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, even though this is the answer. Okay, plugging in a 6 here, 7 times 6 would be 42, and then 42 minus 16 gives me that piece is 26. Oops, 1 second. So this piece is 26. And since this was a midpoint, the other piece should be 26 as well, but we'll check it. Plugging in the 6 right here, 4 times 6 is 24. Add 2, you also get 26. And that's what's nice about geometry. You don't just have a random x equals 6 as the answer. You have something that physically, visually checks. If I got 26 for both of them, I know I did it right. Okay, I'm not going to do number 9 because it's the same thing, okay, except that it does ask you to check when you're done. All right, these are also pretty much the same thing. I'll do number 11, but if you want to, you can do number 11 on your own and then check it, okay? So go ahead and hit pause if you want to. I'm going to move on and do number 11. So let's see. G is a midpoint. They tell me what FH is, but FH is 6y minus 2. Okay, there are two things that are true here. It is true that this piece plus this piece equals the total, but if I write an equation using that, then I'm going to have x's and y's in my equation, and I don't really know how to solve that. Okay, so instead focus on the fact that we have a midpoint. If it's a midpoint, then ignore what the total is for now. If it's a midpoint, then those two pieces are equal. Do the same thing, set them equal. 4x plus 3 equals 7x minus 12. Okay, let's solve that. Subtract 4x on both sides. Add 12 to both sides. And I get 15 is equal to 3x, so x equals 5. Okay, well they want me to find y. How am I going to do that? I have x. Maybe you have no idea what to do. Well, let me just do what I can. You know what? I know what x is. I'll plug that in right here. Okay, if x is 5, 4 times 5 is 20. Add 3 and I get 23 for that piece. Well, GH should also be 23 because this is a midpoint. I can check it, plug in the 5. You get 35 minus 12. Yep, that is 23. That's what it was supposed to be. Okay, well, that wasn't answering the question yet. The question is, what is y? Well, FH is the whole thing. And we now know the whole thing is 46. So if FH is 6y minus 2, but we know FH is also 46, now you can solve for y. Okay, add 2 to both sides and you get 6y equals 48. Divide by 6 and y is 8. And you can plug everything in to make sure it checks. Okay, main idea of today's lesson, whether it's a midpoint or a bisector, it cuts it in half. And it cuts it in half perfectly, giving you 2 equal pieces. Okay, and also 2 pieces have to add up to the total. Segment addition. Here's some practice problems for you. I hope you do well. Good luck. If you guys do have any questions, try to remember to take a picture of your work with your questions so that I can see what you've done wrong, and that helps me figure out your mistake a little quicker. Good luck. Bye.